Okay, so while I also hate PowerPoints. I don't know where mine went. Okay, I also don't follow PowerPoints very well, but I tried to get some visuals for visual learners. Okay, we're going to start with an activity. Everyone right now is going to take their right hand, even if you're left-handed, and you're going to put it like this. You're going to go, oh, like that. Go ahead, do it. Oh. Go. So you're going to, and then you're going to do this while you do that. So like just like a room full of racists right there. Yeah? Okay. So here's the deal. I grew up on an Indian reservation. My family is Lakota and Blackfeet. And I'm going to show you a picture in just a second of my Uncle Charlie man. When I first ask people, like what, if I tell them that I'm Indian, right? I'm like, oh, I'm Indian. And then they're like, oh, you're Native American. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, not this, I'm this, right? And everybody's like, is that okay to laugh? I think like it's really tough to celebrate diversity because each of us with the identity that we choose, right? Like I could use my mom's last name, Crossguns, and suddenly everyone's like, Crossguns? What kind of last name is that? Like it's a Blackfeet last name, and like I just got super street cred right there. So each of our identities, yeah, it kind of gives us permission. And if you don't have that identity, then you don't have permission. And the problem with celebrating diversity is that it's kind of like fake. It's like saying that weight doesn't matter, but like everyone's judging each other on their weight and judging themselves on their weight and like looking in the mirror and wishing they were something. It's like it's real. Like we have barriers around us all the time. And so I feel like, because like a celebration is like a party, and like we can't really come to the party and celebrate because we're all a little bit nervous. Like it's a little bit embarrassing to do this because you're like, wow, I know I'm not supposed to. But if you go to the reservation, everybody says Indian, nobody says Native American. Like nobody's like, oh, hello, I'm Native American. Like no. And also like we make jokes about that all the time because it's funny. And when kids in 7th grade do their like iSearch paper, and they have to pick Native American tribes, and everyone's like, go interview Miss Hoe, she's Indian. Like, Indian. And then they like come in and they're like, oh, I'm doing Apache, and I don't know what you know. And I'm like, okay, good. What are your questions? What does an Apache kid do for fun? Plays video games. Like, he goes and plays soccer, like basketball is a big thing, like, I don't know, maybe as an artist. So I think like, celebrating diversity, we have to be honest with ourselves. Like my friend back there, Cliff, he's huge. He's like, there he is. He's loud. He's a total redneck, actually. I don't know what you're doing here, Cliff. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's like continues to vote Republican. I mean, the last time we talked. But the thing is that, and people are like, celebrate diversity. But like, what we do actually is we seek like-minded people, and we have a really hard time with diversity. If we were going to be honest, like if we're going to be real fair, like we're nervous about diversity because it's why people feel nervous to be like, oh, mahalo. And like if you're white, you're like, why did I say mahalo? Right? Because you don't have permission. And when you think about peace, I feel like peace is like one big like permission slip to like join the table. Like peace is about like being okay with each other more than just like, woo, we're different. Difference sucks. It's hard. It's like, what do you mean you don't think global warming is a real thing? I want to slaughter you. Like it is a real thing. Okay? And so like peace is like difference. I'm just saying. Take her out. Get her out of here. I just feel like if we're really going to try to rebrand peace, I think we also need to rebrand diversity, celebrating diversity. Like everyone here kind of agrees on stuff. But like, what is it to be diverse? It's like, okay, well, maybe we're different colors. And we all know, well, Keely knows, right, that race is made up. It's totally made up categories, and everyone's, that like there's no genetic basis for race. But we're not colorblind. We see color. We kind of like look at Kate, Kate was like, I'm married to a Sri Lankan, and I was like, you are? Oh, okay. That's weird. Because we all do have judgment, and we all do struggle with diversity. And when I, at my school, tell my students, like, okay, I come from a really poor family, and for a while we were homeless, and it's like immediately, like, there's like, if we're like celebrating diversity, it's like, it's okay that you're poor, and I'm like, it's okay that you're rich. We can like be at the same, we're not at the same table, okay? Peace is finding common ground, right? We gotta find the table that we share. To me, the table that we share is the planet. So that's kind of my funnel. I'm like, well, I cannot relate to everybody on a number of things, but what I can relate to you on is that we all like, we're breathing the same air, we want it to be clean so that we don't die. We're drinking the same water, and we want that to be clean so we don't die. And we also like are living in the same space, and we need space. And so I feel like if we can come together around that, which of course is hard, because the water that I want to be clean for somebody else is money, and so we have to like work that out. And then when people tell me to celebrate diversity, I'm like, I struggle. Does everyone hear me on that? Like that struggle, like what does that mean? And so I think ultimately, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I do in terms of building common ground. And I got to pull up, were we able to sign in? I'll sign into my email, just to like give you that whole idea of diversity. He loves to like shock the kids and be like, here, wear my like eagle feather headdress. And everyone's like, what? Is that okay? So that's Uncle Charlie Man. And it is okay. It's okay. Like you gotta start by like, I feel like the first step to peace really is everybody like not taking themselves too seriously. I just feel like that's gotta be the beginning of things. Okay, so we're gonna move on to that. So it's funny, I'm in agreement with you. I think the key is connection. And so like we gotta find like this like common place to connect to begin with. And again, I tend to go towards the planet because everybody actually deep down likes to play. And you just go outside and play. Like I feel like that should be the first thing that everyone does at any workshop, just go play. Or howl. Since we can't go play, everyone on 3 is gonna howl. And you're just gonna tip your head back and just get into it, right? Because that's the kind of thing you can do with kids, by the way. And like the first howl isn't that great. Everyone's like, oh. And then you do it again until you get a really good howl, and you just like, there you go, one wall down. Okay, one step closer to the table that we share. So on 3, we're all gonna howl, okay? 1, 2, 3. People didn't howl. I don't know what that's about. But we can't, like, right? So again, we like celebrate diversity, but we're nervous about the people who step out of bounds. Yeah, we're nervous about the people who don't conform. We're gonna like, you know, the person that like talks back when the presenter's talking right now. Go ahead, Cliff, say something. Just like that, you know, yell, or like that claps too loud and hoots and hollers. So I like honesty, number 1. Like just break down some barriers. Try to howl. I think that's a good way to start everything. Okay, and then you got to drop anchor. So I really feel, I have this really great metaphor that my friend told me, and I'm sure some of you have heard it, which is that it's like your mind is a boat. And every thought and experience that comes in is a wave. And it can take you away. I see that with my students sometimes. They're just like, they're gone. And so we have to, I'm in the toolbox time right now. So if you are an educator or a family person or a community leader, these are the tools I use. So you can use them if you want. So the first thing is teaching people how to drop anchor so that your boat, the waves, you don't have to be right here all the time. Be here now. You can actually move around, but that you have an anchor that always brings you back to the present moment so that you can be mindfully engaged. Okay? So in order to make an influence on people, to have an influence, you have to be present. You have to be in it, full on in it. I like that you also had your shoes off, high foot, okay? Because it's like you're in it, yeah? So the first part is teaching people how to be mindful. And it's not like the Zen, even though I actually think that's really important as well. But the idea is that when you're confronted with somebody who has a very different belief set than you, or a very different way of talking, or like they say things that are not politically correct and that, you know, it feels unsafe or whatever, if you can practice mindfulness and drop anchor, it's like you kind of let that moment where you're like uncomfortable, and then you can bring it back, and you can actually always seek understanding. It's really hard to seek understanding if, like, the first time somebody says something, like says to me, I really don't think climate change is real. like that wave just rocked my boat, and I'm like, I don't even know how to begin to interact with you. But if I can drop anchor and I can be like, I can be here with you and see your perspective. Yeah, you can't build peace if you can't be here and like see each other and work through it together. The minute that you get rocked out here and you're removing yourself from somebody, you've like stepped away from that notion of peace building already. Yeah. So practicing mindfulness. One thing that I do, here's a practical tactic to teach students, is if you take your left hand and make a little cup with your left hand, everyone try it. Left hand cup, and you take your right hand and you nestle it in the cup so that your knuckles are kind of like bedded down right there, and then you touch thumbs. So that when you start to feel like emotion, like anxiety, I feel anxiety a lot sometimes, especially like when I'm sitting in teachers' meetings and I'm, God. Okay, so anxiety, or you're starting to feel frustrated or whatever, touch thumbs. And it's like a grounding. It's a physical way to be like, I am mindfully engaged. And I was like, my mind a little bit went to that sound, as did yours. And my anchor will bring me back. Okay? So I think if you're educators or if you're parents, if you want to build leadership within the kids that you're interacting with, or the adults, I think teaching mindfulness is a really important thing, and there's so many resources on mindfulness, and if you want to know those resources, like with specific lessons, see me later and I'll point you in that direction. So I think you have to drop anchor. And the next thing is that you have to stand out. And I have a unit in the second semester, Keely's not there yet, where we talk about conflict in the 20th century. And we start with like, what would you stand up for? What would you stand up for? And people are like, well, I would stand up for gay rights, and I would stand up for women's rights, and okay. It's really actually not that hard to stand up. Like everyone right now on 3 is actually going to stand up, okay? So get ready for it if you're writing or whatever. So 1, 2, 3, stand up. Okay. Standing up is easy, and you know why? Because we're all standing together. And so it's safe. Okay, so on 3, you're going to sit back down. 1, 2, 3. Rule followers. Good job. Thank you. Okay. All right. So standing out is what we actually want to teach kids to do, and adults. Standing up is just like everybody else is in support of this, so I'm going to stand with them. Standing out is I'm willing to stand alone. I'm willing to go against everybody and be like, yeah, I don't think that's funny. We gotta fix that. Or like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. That's standing out. And it requires courage. It also requires creativity. You have to be creative enough to see a different path and a different way. You have to be creative enough to be like, I'm not sure that this format that we're going with is working. And I'm gonna have the courage to put something new into place. That's what I see as critical thinking, actually. It's creativity and courage together. That's what allows for critical thinking. I don't know how many people have seen this. I was going to show you guys a video. You should look it up, and you should show it to your classes. How many people have seen the first follower video? Yeah. Okay, my students love this video. But what it is there's this guy. It's like a music festival, I think, like in San Francisco. And there's this one guy, and he's like out there, and he's like dancing kind of like, you know, like a little bit like a hippie, but like a little bit not. He's dancing, and the like narrator is like, okay, and this is the lone nut. The person that's like crazy, right? And he's like out there dancing, and we're like on this bandwagon of leaders, but not everyone is a leader. And that is actually totally cool. Not everybody has to be a leader. Not every kid has to be a leader. Not every adult has to be a leader. That's not what makes a movement, or that's not what makes change. We have to have really good followers too. And the argument in the first follower video is that this lone nut alone, standing out, is literally just a crazy person and easy to ignore. And the most important person is actually not that leader. The leader has the vision. It's like, come follow me, I'm the Pied Piper. The person that gets up and is like, I'm going to go dance with them. That first follower just lent credence to this lone nut, okay? Teaching kids how to be a first follower. Like maybe you don't have the courage to be the first one to go out there, but like actually you're like, I want to dance too, and you just do it, and now there's 2, okay? And then like somebody else is like, you guys come with me, and then like 3 people run out together and everybody's dancing, and now you have a dance party. And then pretty soon you have a movement. And that's actually how it works. We have a terrible habit of like talking about icons, and everybody's like, diversity, Martin Luther King Jr., right? Like, really? Who's freed the slaves? I love asking my students, who freed the slaves? Abraham Lincoln. Really? Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves? How about like hundreds of years of little tiny actions and really large courageous actions combined? Yeah, that's what causes change. You teach kids about icons, you're telling them they have no power. Because most of us aren't icons. It sucks to be an icon. It's lonely and it's hard. But if you can teach kids to be first followers, if you can teach them to be collaborative thinkers and problem solvers, to work together, to sit in circles, then you have something that's feasible. And that's actually how change always happens. It doesn't happen through icons. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't lead the civil rights movement. He was a figurehead for the civil rights movement. You want to know how to change oil? Oh, Wild Kids does that. Literally everything that I think is important and that my students think are important and that the current institutions have no room for, which is asinine, we just do it in Wild Kids. Okay? So I really encourage everyone, if you have stuff that you wish the world was this way, just do it. Just start some kind of like, we are called the Rainbow Gathering group. And then everything that you want to do, that you're limited by the current institutions, do it over there. No one can tell you it's your group, it's your organization. So that's what Wild Kids is. Okay, step 4, you have to let go. We're always like, it's all about compromise. It's not about compromise, it's about synergy. If you let go of the reins and you're like, look, we're sitting in a circle, because those are the rules of the village, and we're all going to solve this problem together, then you will actually get much further, okay? So, I think that's really important. And then this is my only example that I want to show you, since okay. I let go of even Wild Kids. Kids started Wild Kids. They were like, Ms. O, take us outside. No one takes us outside. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they're like, take us to Montana. You always talk about Montana. I was like, okay. So now, like, it's like, they are just like, and then it started with 6th graders, and then the 3rd graders were like, how come you're taking them outside? Take us outside. And I was like, okay. And then the kindergartners last year were like, this is really unfair. And I was like, okay, got it. And so now we're at the point where like our Wild Kids have gone to college and they're like, we're still involved, we're in this, okay? And so they were like, Ms. Hoe, your website sucks. And I was like, you're right, I don't know how to build, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just like trying. They're like, we'll build it. So these kids, like in the last 2 weeks, were like, we're gonna build you a website, Ms. Hoe. And they just took over. And this is the website that they built. It's still under construction. Our motto is, Henry David Thoreau's, all good things are wild and free. But, I mean, okay, wait, how do I do this? Oh, right, so like, they're like, learn about our junior counselor program. These are high school students, by the way, a very underlooked workforce. Like, underlooked isn't a word, but overlooked is what I meant. Yeah, and underlooked.
A wild kid can make up a new word.
There we go, Wild Kid. They do make up words. Like Keely can tell you, Keely's part of Wild Kids, and it is just like, it's wild. That's what it is. But look at this. They like made this whole thing, and this is what Wild Kids is about. This kid was like, look, we love the planet, we love each other, we love to be wild. What else is there? Yeah. That's what it is. And that's what they do. They just go outside and they're wild together. And that is crazy in terms of building connection. You want to build peace, you got to build that connection. So just start your own organization and just do that, build the connection, and then from there, you have all these people that share in values. It's awesome. So you got to let go though, because the people that can really help the most are probably under the age of 15. Definitely under the age, like, we don't really have to do it for them. They've already solved most of these problems. We just never listen to them. This is my last step. This is my very last step. It's to grow the light. And this came because there were some of my Wild Kids that were like, Miss Hoe, and they were like complaining about each other. And I was like, hey, here's the deal. Look at this candle. I have fire in my room. I think it should be allowed. So, like, okay, light the fire. I'm like, put it out. Put out the fire. Okay, it's easy to extinguish light. It doesn't take a lot. It's easy, like a bucket of water and the fire is out. Okay, so, and that's really like our mode a lot of times in this modern society. We're really good at extinguishing, yeah? But what we want to teach people to do is how to grow light, how to grow fire. And if you know anything about starting a campfire, it takes a lot of patience and time and problem solving. You're like, I don't know why I did the stick TP and there's like paper down here, okay? It's still not going. And then you're like, can you come help me? Growing light requires a team. It requires everybody focused on the same idea. It requires patience. It requires forgiveness, like forgiveness of yourself. Like, you know, if anyone's tried to start a campfire and it's like, because the rain is coming, yeah, it's hard. I think of that as a metaphor for peace building. Yeah, grow the light. Teach people how to grow the light. And whether they're doing it by like leading the charge down Main Street or whether they're doing it in their household. But like, that's the mantra that I give my kids and I think everyone should have. Just grow the light, grow the light, grow the light. Someone's rude to you, grow their light. Don't extinguish them. Empower them. Everyone around you. And if we come from that perspective, we all elevate. Okay, I ran out of time. Goodbye.